Hi, welcome back to the shop. This is going to be the next project build. I'll have plans for it on my site. I'll have the whole project video on YouTube, hopefully by next week. A few more finishing touches on the project. My friend Brian's making the plans, and hopefully everything will get wrapped up and I'll get this out next Friday night or Saturday morning. I did want to go into some of the details on the finish. If you've been watching the channel, you know that when I'm building what I consider fine furniture, I often use Waterlox, and Waterlox is going to be the sponsor of the build video. They're not necessarily the sponsor of this video since I'm not getting paid for it, but I'll give them a shout out just because it's like a nice thing to do. And whenever I use Waterlox, I also use Oxygen, and they are also the sponsor of the build video. So let's just get into some of the details and some of the things that I figured out while I was working on this project, and then I want to get into how and why I finish a lot of my furniture with Waterlox, which is a wipe-on varnish. So first thing, originally I thought I was building this bench out of solid Bubinga. So the top is Bubinga, but the legs and this brace here are Padauk, and I didn't realize that until I started to mill the material. It's a very distinctive orange color and an orange sawdust. It really makes the shop a mess. So I kind of had a little bit of a pause for a second, but then I thought, it's not that big of a deal. The Bubinga, or not the Bubinga, the Padauk is going to look very similar to the Bubinga once it ages just a little bit. And to kind of make that point clear, I've got what I call this an end table. You might kind of question, is this really an end table? But this is what we use for an end table. It's been in my living room now for at least 20 years. It's just 5 pieces of 8-quarter that have been laminated together. I did use biscuits because I didn't have a big planer or joiner to make this, so I just milled all the material the same size, biscuited it together, and then sanded it, put a little round over at the top, and we use it as an end table. But this is Padauk, and it's also finished with Waterlox. And since I'm at the stage of this project where it's going to get one more coat, I thought I'd scuff this up a little bit and give it another coat of Waterlox. Before I start sanding the base with 320, I just want to tell you how I got to this point. So the whole piece of furniture is sanded down to 220. Then I give it 4 coats of Waterlox, not sanding in between coats, but waiting at least 12 hours. So sometimes I can give it a coat early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning, and then at the end of the day, 6, 7 o'clock, I'll give it another coat. Not sanding in between coats, just getting another coat of Waterlox. I will apply the Waterlox with an old t-shirt. So basically you're just pouring a little of the Waterlox into a container, and then you're wiping the Waterlox. You get it, basically saturate the wood first, and then finish by wiping in the direction of the grain as best as you possibly can. It gets a little bit more difficult, obviously, on some of these inside areas, but that's what you want to do. I finish the end grain, both on the top and bottom of the bench, in this case, on the end of the seal. You want to seal everything up because you just want to eliminate any moisture from getting into the wood, especially if it's only getting into one particular area. That's going to make the piece much more stable. So even the little slots that I have here for these, some people call them buttons, you can call them wooden clips. I use these to attach the top to allow for expansion and contraction. So now that I have 4 coats on the base and the top, I'm going to sand the whole piece with 320 sandpaper. Before I start sanding this, I just want to point out the bottom of this end table here. You can see it's pretty similar in color to the base of this bench, and it's just because it's never really seen the light of day. And so this is what the Padauk will turn into. And also you can see my confusion maybe with the Bubinga and the Padauk. So this is Bubinga. That's what these clips are made out of. And this is Padauk. And it wasn't until I started to mill the Padauk that I could see that very orange-red color. To freshen this piece up, I'm just sanding it with a little 320 sandpaper. Just kind of cleaning it up a bit, trying to remove any scratches. I had a little dried paint on there, probably from the baseboard heater. I had to use a razor blade to kind of remove those little white spots. But this will look really nice once it gets one or two more coats of finish. You can see it's dinged up a little bit here. I mean, that's what's going to happen. 20-something years of 4 kids, furniture is going to get dinged up. When it comes to finishing, it's really important to have a plan. So this is the top of the bench seat. You can hear those things that are falling off right now. Those are nailers. It's a block of wood with a screw in it. But I'm not going to use them now because I'm going to put the seat facing down, so the top will be down. And the top is already sanded and vacuumed. So now I'm going to use poplar. It's a nice semi-soft wood. And I'll put the top down on the poplar. Make sure to move these out of the way. In fact, I'm going to put these on this side of the bench so I'll be able to reach them when I need them. I'll place this now right on those poplar sticks. Give this a sanding, and then when I go to finish, this will be the first surface that I finish. I'll flip it over, and how am I going to do that? Oh, I'm going to flip it over and rest it on these poplar sticks, then put my nailers back in place and drop it back on those nailers. That'll allow air circulation to dry the finish, and you'll only have those small little points at the bottom of the seat, which no one will see. Now I have all the parts sanded, vacuumed, wiped off, and I'm ready to apply the Waterlox. I'm using an old cotton t-shirt. It's what I use all the time. Just going to saturate the board, and then my last sort of wipes will be in the direction of the grain. So you can go like this, doesn't matter. Just want to get that finish all around. And then once it's all down, your last motions will be in the direction of the grain. Now I'm ready to flip the top. I'm only trying to hold it at the edge. So I'm being gentle here because I don't want to ding the edge with the board. Now I have my nailers. The nailers are taller than the poplar sticks. I can shimmy this back a little bit. Get the other nailers down in place. And then gently roll the top over. I can now pull these out, so when I'm applying the finish to the edge, I don't hit the sticks. For the base of the bench, again, I'm applying the finish while the base is upside down. I'll apply it to the ends first, kind of avoiding this area. I'll finish this area after I flip the bench over. With the ends of the bench done, I can flip the bench over. And I am going to rest the legs on these sticks, but then quickly replace the sticks with these nailers. Being careful that I'm not at the edge. I wouldn't want to break a piece of the finish off, or I wouldn't want to splinter off a piece of wood near the edge. So I'm taking my time, making sure I place these in the right position. Now I can finish the center brace and the end grain at the top. And now I can freshen up the finish on this 20-year-old end table with a new coat of Waterlox. Something very satisfying about this, that's for sure. Now I'll take the rest of the finish, pour it back into the can, and use the pre-cover. You want to save these. I'll hold the pre-cover just like that. Take the Biloxygen, 2 seconds of Biloxygen. That's a heavier argon gas that will force the oxygen out of the can and sit on top of the finish and prevent the finish from skinning over and going bad while it's in storage. Okay, and that is about all there is to it when you're applying a wipe-on varnish. I always suggest wipe-on varnishes, especially to new woodworkers, because it's really hard to screw up this finish. I mean, you're just wiping the finish on, so you don't have to worry about runs and drips that you would, like you would with like a polyurethane. An oil-based polyurethane would give you that sort of plasticky kind of coat, which takes away from the beauty of the wood, in my opinion. A water-based poly you really wouldn't want to use on a beautiful wood, because the water-based poly really deadens the wood unless you spray it with shellac first. You may have seen one of my videos about that. But then you need to know how to spray. So if you're just getting into woodworking, I would say the go-to finish is Waterlox, or a wipe-on varnish. A big thanks to Biloxygen. I've been working with Biloxygen now for a couple of years, and I really believe in this stuff. Back in the day, I used to squeeze the can to try to make less room in the can and get all the oxygen out of it. Some people will store the can upside down. Since I've been using Biloxygen, a few seconds of Biloxygen, the heavier argon gas sits on top of the finish and keeps the finish from going bad. It sort of forces the oxygen out of the can and sits on top of that finish, and it just works great. Like usually, if I put a can away that was half full, it would just gel up and skin over, and this is pretty expensive stuff, so you don't want it to go bad while it's in storage. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll join me next week for the build on this bench. I will have plans for it, and along with the plans and the detailed video, if you want to build this, it'll be like a woodworking lesson that will result in, I think, a beautiful piece of furniture for your home. I hope that you'll check out all my other furniture projects at johnpeters.com. They all have video tutorials right here on YouTube designed to help guide you through the project, and you can start making the furniture for your home with a little help from me here in the shop. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.